One objection to panpsychism that I wanted to raise, in my mind, it's analogous to the interaction problem with dualism, where, just to remind our listeners, it's this problem of how the immaterial interacts with the material. How is it that the mentality of these microscopic particles, the fundamental physical constituents of the world, combine to create this unified sense of consciousness in me? What is the interaction here that gives me a unified sense of consciousness, but doesn't give the mug that you raised and pointed to earlier a sense of consciousness?
Good. So when you said interaction problem, I was thinking you were going to say, how does the consciousness at the level of particles interact with the physical stuff? And if you'd have said that, I would say, well, that's a dualistic a quite common dualistic interpretation of panpsychism, where you've got, the physical properties of the particles, mass and spin and charge, and then these weird consciousness properties. How do they interact? Sabine Hossenfelder had a blog post a few years ago, raising this objection to panpsychism, saying, this would show up in our physics as if, as well as their physical properties, particles had these weird non-physical consciousness properties. But that's not the view. As I said earlier, the view is that there is the consciousness, the fundamental consciousness underlies the mathematical structures of physics. So we can keep the standard model of particle physics exactly as it is, those beautiful mathematical structures physics gives us. We just say, look, there's this other layer underneath that story. Okay, so if there was an I think that would fit more with what makes sense to me to call an interaction problem. But you did raise what is generally seen as the biggest challenge of panpsychism, commonly referred to as the combination problem. Okay, we postulate these little conscious things. How do they come together to make our consciousness or the consciousness of other animals? That's what we ultimately want to explain. So this is a very serious issue that the energies of the contemporary panpsychist research program are focused on. And there are lots of interesting proposals, and it's very early days. I mean, we could talk through some of the options. I suppose to my mind, even if at the end of the day, I guess I'm more and more sympathetic to. Well, let me rephrase that. Even if at the end of the day, we have to just add. We just have to take this as primitive. We just have to say, look, it's just a primitive fact about conscious particles that they, in certain circumstances, they combine into unified conscious wholes. And it's a scientific question when that happens. But even, let's say at the end of the day, we just have to take that as a brute extra fact. Well, I still think panpsychism is a very attractive theory. Why? Because I think its central explanatory advantage is its capacity to explain physical reality in terms of consciousness, and thus to bottom out in a very simple parsimonious theory of reality, right? We said that's ultimately what we want. We want to explain everything in terms of one kind of fundamental stuff. The physicalist tries to reduce everything to physical stuff. I don't think they succeed at that, but the panpsychist shows us how to reduce everything to consciousness. And I think they have shown us how to do that. Now, if they can also explain our consciousness in terms of combinations of conscious particles, fantastic. That's a bonus. But even if they can't do that, even if there's just an extra primitive there, still their theory only commits to one fundamental kind of property or stuff, consciousness stuff, and I think is very simple in that regard. So I think there's lots to say about a combination problem, but even if that never gets solved in a satisfactory way, I still think panpsychism is superior to those two traditional rivals.